would bring that back on the 28th. Next, we have before us a resolution to support local control and claim of appeal against Michigan Public Service Commission order. Attorney Porter, will you please discuss the resolution and provide us with the background?
Yeah, a number of units have taken issue with what the MPSC did recently. I know that everybody's aware of the recent changes with Public Act 233, which authorized the Public Service Commission basically to cite energy facilities, both solar, wind, and battery backup, with no local input. But that's not really the issue here. The issue here was this isn't anti-solar or anti-wind or anti-battery. What this was is the challenges to the fact that the MPSC did not use the Administrative Procedures Act to implement their rules. I mean, state law says if you're going to impose regulation, you're supposed to go through a process to enact those regulations, and they skirted that. This is happening at the federal level a lot as well, and in addition to that, they redefined, the MPSC redefined many of the terms that were contained in state law. That's up to the state legislature to do that, and because of that, a number of units banded together and they've challenged it. We're not participating in the lawsuit. All this resolution basically says is you didn't do it the right way, and we're supporting the challenge because we should have had more of an opportunity. MTA attorneys were there saying, you can't simply adopt these after a couple public hearings. You're not following the proper procedure. And so all we're saying is, in this appeal, is that we support the coalition that's challenging how these quote regulations that aren't really regulations because they weren't put in under the Administrative Procedures Act, and you can't redefine the law. That's outside of your authority. That's the legislature's authority.
So the basic argument is you didn't follow your rulemaking process?
Correct. And you're changing the definitions supplied in the law. How that will impact us as a local unit, we're probably not high on the list of wind or solar, sure, maybe battery backup. And we, unlike other communities, we're actually, in thanks to our new planning director, are putting a unified energy, renewable energy ordinance in place that will accommodate and address these issues locally, but to have the MPSC basically just sort of run over us without so much as a by your leave, I think is outrageous.
Yeah.
And so they reached out, they're asking for support of other local units, simply saying this is not how the legal process ought to work, and we should have more of an opportunity to come before a rulemaking body and have input in how those rules are implemented and applied to local units.
Where are they in the process for this?
They've already
Michael,
done it.
you're not on.
They just did it. They just said, here's our order.
No, I meant where's the townships that have pushed forward to
They're
appeals?
they're currently in court now and proceeding. I don't know exactly where it stands at this point, but I'm assuming that the challenge will be brought on for motions in the relatively short. I would expect within the next 3 to 5 months they'll be in front of the court. I think what they're looking for is, look, we have 30-some units that have appealed this, but we have another 150 or 200 units of government out there saying, wait a minute, you can't do this. You can't just run over the local units of government. Unfortunately, in my nearly 40 years of legal practice in the municipal area, I have seen local control curtailed, dumbed down, taken away completely over and over and over again. And I think, of course, I'm biased, I think local government's the best government because it's the closest to the people. And when somebody in Lansing tells us what we can and can't do, even though we know our community, we know what the people would like to see, I think this community here is particularly open to this type of development and would accommodate it in a reasonable fashion. And what this is saying is, no, Lansing knows best and the MPSC knows best, and we don't want your input.
I think that's a take. That is a take on this. I don't know that I share the full sentiment that you're expressing right now. So it's my understanding that the state legislature passed this law or set of laws that empowered the Michigan Public Service Commission to go ahead and cite these facilities because local communities were saying absolutely not. No way, we don't want this or that, and different political stripes throughout the state have different feelings on some of this stuff.
True.
At the Planning Commission level, we've talked about it and decided, the developers have expressed an interest in working directly with the locals. There is provisions within the law for us to set up our own ordinances around this.
Yes.
I think that that's all good and worthwhile. Now, when I read this resolution, my first question is, who are we joining in support with? Like, who's suing?
There's
What are all the townships that are signed on to that? And I want to understand their reason. I just feel like I'm not concerned about this personally because I believe that what the state legislature was trying to accomplish is in the best interest of everybody in this state and in the nation. And if we're not going to, do right to meet the transition, the energy transition that this country is going through, then this is the outcome. It has to happen. So either play ball, which is what Oshtemo is going to do,
Yep.
or the state will play ball for you. And I think that that's okay in general for this issue. So I'm leaning away from wanting to publicly support the folks filing an appeal against the Michigan Public Service Commission here. I don't understand how this benefits us.
Well, part of the problem that I have with what the MPSC did is it makes it unclear when we move forward, we're moving forward looking at the legislation. There are some discrepancies or disparities between the legislation, the way it was drafted and should be implemented, versus what the MPSC has said they're going to follow.
Okay.
So I do think it creates a conflict even for those that want to cooperate.
Sure.
Because it creates a bit of a schism. Can I tell you exactly where the MPSC order and the state law either conflicts or is inconsistent? It would take a much more detailed analysis than I can give you tonight.
Sure.
But so from my perspective, the problem is it's simply not consistent with state law. What they've done
Okay.
is not consistent.
So in the resolution then, I would like to see the whereas media reports describe ongoing efforts by interested groups to push for the further erosion of local control. I'd like to see that struck from this resolution.
Where is
It's the third
It's on
whereas.
page 10.
It would be the second and third whereas in this resolution. Because if our gripe is not about the legislation, then I don't think our gripe should state that we're saying, hey, these guys are taking away local control. No, our gripe is that the Michigan Public Service Commission didn't follow its rulemaking
From my
process.
perspective, I think that's the primary gripe.
Yes,
I think the state legislature had to act.
correct.
Because local units were simply
Stonewalling.
stonewalled.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay, and so I just want to make sure that when we speak to the issue, that we are strictly focused on the thing that we're concerned about and not this it's not, to me, this is not a local control issue.
So I'm going to I'm going to pull it away a little bit away from just this issue of local control, but when the ITC corridor went through our community, the MPCS was not a player with locals, and they did railroad us. And they didn't work with residents, and they didn't work with the township. So I don't trust the MPSC to make the best decision. So while I agree with you, the spirit is to, from the legislature, is to expand solar and wind and all that. I think that's the spirit of the legislation, but I don't trust the MSPC to be the entity that, and so, to me, the thing that furthers that distrust is, the statement from Jim that they didn't follow their own administrative process. So, from that standpoint only, or for me, is why I would, we can look at those two whereases, and if we want to bring this back after those have been struck. So, I do think that we can't just forego local control, because I think we saw with the ITC corridor that was controlled by the MPSC, who dealt, that if they can work around the local government, then they will. And not for the better, not necessarily in harmony, where we would hope that partnerships would exist, where we can build things together that, aesthetically, we had, and I think I was on zoning or planning when that corridor was coming through, but, residents just asking, run it through along the property line, or run it through, and it was like, nope, this is the plan, this is the way we drew it, and if, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only people that were successful were residents that challenged ITC in court and were able to get the line moved.
We did that.
We challenged it. We did not.
We did not prevail, though.
We did not prevail. The only people that prevailed were people that knew people in Lansing.
Oh,
That's
well,
as nicely as I can say it.
Okay,
And got
well,
it
and
moved
that-
to the north of their property line.
so.
We got steamrolled.
I don't think I
guess-
disagree with
guess-
anything you said. So I guess I would just ask that we have a resolution that focuses on the thing that we're agreeing on, which is,
Okay.
we didn't like the way they made the rule because they didn't follow their process, which didn't provide our ability to provide the input that we would want to see, right? Like, that's part of the problem?
Yeah, the order that they put in place, basically, they put an order in place that expanded their power, not in the appropriate way. You could strike those two paragraphs and.
Yeah, I don't
approve it
have a
in the
problem with
form
the
that it's
legislation that was passed. I don't really have a problem with what the MPSC's role is going to be, but I can support this concern around the way they made the rules.
So I agree with that, but then there's one of the whereas on page 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 down on page 11, whereas the township supports the coalition of Michigan municipalities in their efforts to protect local control in the regulation of energy facilities. The problem with this, and the reason the state legislature did what it did, is NIMBY, the not in my backyard. Everybody's going to say not in my backyard. Nobody wants anything but what they want in their backyard. And we are the closest to the people, but it's also very difficult for us to tell people that I know you don't want it in your backyard, but unfortunately it's going to be. And so this it actually can be beneficial. We can say, as I understood the rule, it was that first any project would come before us, and then if, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we did not agree to it or we could not find a consensus, then they could override it.
That's correct.
So, I think that I'm fully in support of that, completely in support of that, because the NIMBYs will always show up in numbers. The NIMBYs will always put pressure on the local individuals, even though something may be for the better of the entire community or the entire state in this case. So I share some of the same issues that Zach does, but the technicalities there and not following their own rules, absolutely I support that. But the whereas here that I mentioned I do not support the way that's worded. Excuse me.
Is there any other discussion on this resolution?
I can agree with what Zach said, and I would support that.
So, that's striking,
The first two?
is it the first two or the?
Oh, second and third, sorry.
Second and third.
It's, oh, I've got the wrong ones marked. Okay, hold on.
Second, third, and then I think the last two. But I don't know that I would have been in favor of trying to appeal.
Yeah, I don't think we can really speculate on that.
And then that's a very focus on what we're truly concerned about.
On the issue.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I can support all that.
we could do that.
don't get me wrong, I believe in local control too, but like, you know, as we've discussed, it's give and take on certain things. Which is good.
Well, I guess I want to know is, we would be, if I'm hearing correctly, the two whereases on page 10, or whereas number 2 and whereas number 3, trustee Ford, trustee Sikora, and trustee Chapman would like to see those statements struck. And then on page 11, the last two whereases. I heard by,
There's still more.
okay, I think that we should probably table this because at this point, I mean, we're striking,
Given the comments, what I can do is I'll try to rework this to be more specific with regard to the issue that the township board can support and bring it back at your January
14th or
14th
28th.
meeting.
okay,
Thank you, Jim.
No,
I think this is good. and
the
we gotta-
request was up for discussion, and my biggest, like I said, my biggest gripe was follow the law.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
just follow the law.
No, this was a good discussion.
Well, and I especially appreciate you've already been talking about this at the planning commission where it's newer for some of us.
okay, so we will table this item until a future meeting. Next, we